Okay, welcome back to another very, very special interview with a very dear friend of mine. 10 years. I literally usually interview him at least 2, 3 times a year. Sadly, I missed 2020 as we all did because of lockdowns and stuff. So, without further ado, a very dear friend of mine. And not only that, a huge mentor in my life, as you all know, since I first read Chariots of the Gods in 1985 when I was whopping 5 going on 6. So, Erich von Daniken, welcome back, dear friend.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you. We know each other only
Yes.
by interviews. And
Amen.
Yes.
And seeing each other at different events and stuff like that. You recently wrote a new book. It's Confessions of an Egyptologist, Lost Libraries, Vanished Labyrinths, and the Astonishing Truth Under the Saqqara Pyramids. Fascinating title, by the way. And personally, I always argued that if we still had the Library of Alexandria, we would have been further advanced in our society. So, what was the reason you wrote this book, and who was the Egyptologist that gave you this information?
You know, his name was in reality Adel Hamad, and he was a very good friend. He was a studied Egyptologist, all through grown up in Egypt and knows everything about the pyramids and the ruins, whatever. He also studied for 6 years Egyptology in Vienna, and therefore Adel spoke fluently German, so we could discuss each other between English and German. It was wonderful. Now, Adel was shot down by the terrorist attack some 20 years ago. You know, it was a catastrophe. And because they killed him so brutally, that was the reason why I decided to come up with the book, the story, the discoveries of the Egyptologist Adel Hamad.
Now, the 3 things that I mentioned in the subtitle: Lost Libraries, Vanished Labyrinths, and the Astonishing Truth Under the Saqqara Pyramids. I mentioned Library of Alexandria. How many other libraries did we lose over time?
God, endless. You know, practically every culture in the past had its own library. I mean, we had hundreds of kingdoms worldwide, and they all had their libraries. They're all gone. Gone by flood, gone by destructions, gone by natural catastrophes, mostly destroyed by humans. Just imagine or compare it with today. I am living in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, the capital of Switzerland is the city of Bern. Only in Bern, we have a library with over 10 million volumes.
Wow.
Then go to Germany. Germany is a much bigger country than Switzerland. Germany has at least 100 million volumes in their libraries in Frankfurt and so on. And practically today, every culture has a big library. It was the same thing in the past, but practically only a few of these old books still exist. The biggest part was destroyed.
What about vanished labyrinths? I know a lot of people, when they think of labyrinth, they think of the ancient Greek, what some call mythology, of a labyrinth with a monster inside, and the person who was able to figure out how to get out of it used a string of yarn to essentially figure out his way through the maze. What's your take on that story? And can you tell us about some of the other labyrinths?
You know, the library you just mentioned was the library of the island of Crete. And there,
right.
The monster, the so-called Minotaurus, was captured in there, and he could not find out the way. That's another long story. The labyrinth of Crete was never discovered until today. We never found it. Some people say that they found parts of it. Others disagree and say, no, this is a misunderstanding, etc. But also in ancient Egypt, there was a gigantic labyrinth, gigantic. I know this because of the ancient writers. You know, some 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, a man like Herodotus, the Greek historian, was in Egypt. Or 2,000 years ago, a historian like Diodor of Sicily was there. Strabon, Plutarch, all these well-educated historians 2,000 years ago, they were all in Egypt. And they all write about the labyrinth. They all were in there personally. They described the labyrinth is immense. Herodotus say it is even bigger than the Great Pyramid. And he knew the Great Pyramid. He was standing before. He clearly says the labyrinth had 1,500 rooms under the surface of the earth and 1,500 over. So altogether 3,000 rooms and 1,500 under the earth. Absolutely incredible what they describe. And this labyrinth was full with books, knowledge of that time. Till until today, we have never discovered the labyrinth of Egypt. In official archaeology, they say, yes, it was discovered. It was near a pyramid out there in Havara. I was there. It is not true. You know, the historians like Herodotus, who were in the Lee labyrinth, they describe gigantic, monolithic buildings, hundreds of meters long, walls of monoliths, etc. And the labyrinth in Havara, which they tell us they could have been the labyrinth, has nothing monolithic at all. It's not comparable. So it's not true. We have never discovered the real ancient labyrinth in Egypt. It must have been gigantic because all these historians 2,000 years ago and more were there.
1,500 rooms below the ground, and then 1,500 more above. 3,000 rooms.
3,000
wow,
rooms.
I can't even imagine the area that would take underground, let alone above ground. Now, tell me about the Saqqara pyramid.
Well, you know, Saqqara, according to official archaeology, the step pyramid in Saqqara should be the oldest of one. I don't believe this. I think this is a misunderstanding, but that's my personal opinion. But what we do now, in 1954, the British archaeologist Dr. Brian Emery discovered subterranean tunnels under Saqqara. And these tunnels are not just 200 or 300 meters long. They are kilometers and kilometers long. It is a real kind of labyrinth, not comparable to the labyrinth with the gigantic monoliths. It's simply tunnels underground. I was in some of these tunnels. Some of them are so large, you can drive in with the car. And then right and left, they have niches. In the niches, gigantic sarcophaguses. I mean, gigantic. The lower part, 60 to 80 tons. Only the lid, 40 tons. Gigantic. So you cannot imagine. Now, Mr. Brian Emery, who discovered all this in 1954, he said that down there are millions and millions, and you hear correctly, not 100,000, millions of mummies. Only 200,000 mummified crocodiles. Over 1 million mummified birds. Now you must hold this in mind. I mean, a bird, first they have to put some oil around the bird. Then they have to put some linen. Then they have to put the bird in a so-called canopy. Canopy is how you call it? An object where you put it in. Then you make holes in the wall for thousands and 100,000. It's all crazy. Why have the ancient Egypt done this? And by the way, you know, the normal people think in old Egypt, okay, the pharaoh was mummified. Maybe humans. No, every living being was mummified, including fishes, birds, ducks, small animals like scorpions. They mummified everything. Why? They believed in reincarnation. In old Egypt, they were sure that every form of life can be reincarnated, but only if the body is preserved as a whole. That's why they mummified everything. It's incredible. They were sure that in the past of Egypt at that time, the world was already destroyed once and it would be destroyed again. And so that all these animals would recover, be reincarnated again. That's why they mummified everything.
Do you think that the reason there are 100,000 crocodiles, 1 million birds, and all these crazy animals like scorpions in Saqqara, as opposed to, say, where King Tut was found, because possibly that the people or the one person in Saqqara that's buried there is possibly of higher status as a king or something?
Well, definitely. I mean, we know it from, you know, again, Herodotus, he was in Egypt some 450 BC, and Herodotus was told by the Egyptian priest who accompanied him. They told him that 11,340 years ago, the gods from the firmament descended. The gods from the firmament were on earth. Now 11,340 years. And Herodotus made this statement 2,500 years from now on. So we have to add 2,500 years to the 11,340. Altogether, roughly 14,000 years ago, when the gods from the firmament were among the humans. That's what Egyptians say, not Erich von Daniken. And you can prove it. They say the first rulers of Egypt were gods, extraterrestrials. Only later, because they made mixture and crossing between the gods and human, only later the pharaoh have been humans. And the first gods, they had all these elongated heads. And when you see pictures or sculptures, designs of the oldest Egyptian gods like Osiris, Isis, even their children, they all have this elongated head. It's not to compare with Central America. You know, in Central America and South America, we know that the Inca, for example, they used the birds, the head of the just burn humans. The head was, the bones were soft, and they pressed it together and they elongated it because they want to look like the gods. Not in Egypt. There, the elongated heads were the original. The original extraterrestrials had elongated heads. And you can prove it by all these pictures and sculptures which you find in Egypt.
I think of someone, a pharaoh with a large head in Egypt, first person I think about is King Akhenaten, right?
Yes, of course, he was one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that the Incas weren't naturally elongated, but they actually stretched it. And like you said, this is with all the cultures that do something like that. It happens while they're young because their bones are soft.
Yes, exactly. But this is only in Central and South America, not in Egypt. In Egypt, the original gods, they had their elongated heads. Yes.
Now, I'm going to talk about for a second about the show Ancient Aliens. In 1969, after being in the seminary in the early 60s, once you were reading about the Bible, and I think there was a specific story where there was a wall and God destroyed the wall. And that's when you made the realization that my God won't use, doesn't use technology to blow down a wall. It's God's God. He'll destroy it. But so you wrote Chariots of the God, fast forward to Ancient Aliens, season 1, where it was just a limited series. It took the world by storm. Clearly, I mean, we're going through 100 episodes later. Since Chariots of the Gods Part 1, and since 100 plus episodes of Ancient Aliens, how would you say your original ideas of Ancient Aliens with no current visitation has changed to what do you currently believe now? That we are being visited?
Well, first of all, I am still a deep believer in God.
Of course.
I am one of these figures. I am one of these persons who pray every evening. Yeah. All true, I don't know what God is. I have no definition, but I call it the spirit of the universe. So in full respect, I pray this. But these ancient aliens were not God. They were beings with bodies. And you can prove it. You just mentioned it in the Bible, for example, in the first book of Moses, before the so-called God descends to the holy mountain. He gives order to Moses to construct a gate around the mountain so that the people could not come close by. Otherwise, the people would be destroyed. So Moses constructs a gate, and the Israelites are in safe distance. And then the Lord descends with smoke and fire and trembling and loud noise, and the whole mountain was glowing like a furnace, etc. Now, my God, I deeply believe in does not need a vehicle in which to move around from point A to point B. God is all over. He's a spiritual being. He does not need vehicle, and so on. That's why it all started with Chariots of the Gods, because of my religious doubts. In the meantime, you ask me if I'm sure. In the meantime, I have published 43 books to the subject. They are not all available on the American market, but on the German market, 43 books. And I have absolutely no doubt we were visited by beings from outer space. And these visitors, Before they left our planet, they promised to our forefathers they will return in the far future. And I think we have good reasons to believe they are back again. And this is the talk about UFOs. That's another story.
And that this actually leads to my current point, and I'm glad you answered it the way you are, that they were going to come back in the distant future, and that's happening now. So the next part of this question is, since the United States Navy released the 3 very famous naval footage of the Navy chasing the UFO, Tic Tac, Gimbal, Go Fast, what's your opinion on those, especially when the United States government, Lou Elizondo, announced we're still studying UFOs, which shows that they've been lying to us for decades when they said, oh, we don't study that stuff.
I know, of course, and I'm very happy that the United States government did release these facts. All through, they never speak of extraterrestrials. They just speak of unknown objects. So they don't have the courage to speak of extraterrestrials. Sooner or later, we will speak of extraterrestrials. And what I do miss, we still don't have good pictures of UFOs. We always see the same pictures, some kind of shadow who disappears and reappears, but we don't have real good pictures of UFOs. I am missing that, but I'm sure it's a question of the next 7 to 10 years that the large public worldwide would be informed. Yes, we are not alone. We are visited. Extraterrestrial are observing us. We don't have to be afraid of that. They are not enemies of us. They help us. This will come in the next years, inevitably.
What do you think of the Space Force? Some people like Linda Moulton Howe told me this has been around, at least almost 20 years. Other people say it was announced in 2017. It'll happen sometime later. A third group of people say, yeah, it was announced, created by Donald Trump, and it's in effect today. Do you think that we have a viable Space Force? Do we go further than traditional SpaceX rockets? Are we interacting possible with ETs or anything like that, in your opinion?
I think so. Brilliant personalities from the political side and also from the scientific part have made their statement in public. For example, the ex-defense minister of Canada, Mr. Paul Hellyer, clearly said that extraterrestrials are here. He even said some of them look like us. We could meet them on the street and we would not realize the difference between of them. Or Chaim Eshed, who is the chief of Israel's security of space, he clearly said, yes, extraterrestrials are here. Now, all these people, and there are more of them, are not idiots. They have the responsibility. They know what they am talking. In America, everybody knows the NASA. NASA is known in America. Nobody knows the French NASA. Of course, because in French, it's not called NASA, it's called ANSN. And the chief, Monsieur Yves Silla of the French NASA, clearly said, yes, we are under observation. It is time that we go to public with this. But the large public is still not informed. It's a shame. Sooner or later, the large public will be informed. At the moment, we are still afraid. And the fact is, we would be shocked. I mean, extraterrestrials have the possibility they could land over a football stadium. Now, the cameras are there already, but it would be a catastrophe for the humans. We are not used to it. We would be afraid. We would say, well, will they enslave us? Will they take us over, etc.? So the community is not prepared. In the Western world, this preparation is going on by all these kind of movies and Star Treks and so on. But for example, in the Muslimic world, it would be a complete shock. They cannot understand extraterrestrials. They think we are alone.
You just mentioned something that I didn't hear. So this just goes to show how skewed American media is about global affairs. And I'm sure this is going to be a shock to all the people who are going to see this and hear this tomorrow and beyond, and probably some people here. You said that the French space
agency, yes,
said that we are under observance. I mean, that's mind-blowing. That's a massive global news. And then you mentioned the other part too. Humans, I truly think, are scared. The people who are, possibly some of the atheists or possibly some of the other people who believe in God but don't believe there's others out there, I think they still fear that, hey, there may be intelligence that's superior to us out there observing us.
The problem is, roughly, on this planet, we have two sorts of human.
Mm-hmm.
One group is religious and the other group is scientific.
Yeah.
The religious group believes, well, God made everything.
Mm-hmm.
God made us, etc. And so, and the scientific group say, now it's all evolution, mutation, solution, etc. But none of the two groups, neither the scientific group nor the know the starting point, the beginning. No one knows how it started. To say in the beginning was God simply brings up the next question. Okay, where did God come from? Or to say in the beginning there was a Big Bang. Okay, simply brings the next question. What started the Big Bang? What is this atomic particle come from? So we really have no answer. That's why we still think we are alone. We are the greatest. We are unique in this universe. We are too proud, and we should become more humble. We should learn. Out there are millions and millions of intelligent forms of life. And I know this because of my studies in antiquity. In antiquity, they were here, and in many cases, they teach young people, boys mostly, and these boys asked them, where do you come from? And they never said from Atlantis or from another continent or from another time. They always pointed to the sky. They said some names which we cannot understand. We came from there. And they always promised, we will return in a far future. And this promise of the returning has become part of every culture worldwide, including today. I am educated as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Christians, of course, wait for the returning of Jesus.
Yeah.
But the Muslimic society says, no, it is not Jesus, it is the Mahdi who will return. The Jewish community says, no, it's not Jesus or Mahdi, it is the Messiah who will return. It doesn't matter what religion you believe. Each religion has the expectation of the return of some teacher. Now, honestly, not every religion can be right. Some of them must be wrong. And I'm afraid they are all wrong. Nor Jesus, nor Mahdi, nor Messiah, simply extraterrestrials return because they promised it to our forefathers some thousands of years ago.
Do you think, hold on a second, sorry, sir. At the stream, there you are. Do you think that we will see disclosure in if your life, if not in my lifetime? I'm about to be 42 next week, so
come on, in your lifetime, of course. Of course,
so
in your
you think
lifetime.
so? Because I, based on what I've been paying attention for decades, it seems to me that literally people have been talking about disclosure for 75, 80 years. But I am more optimistic now that we have so many new revelations that we didn't have recently.
Definitely. I'm in the meantime, I'm an old man. You won't believe it. I'm 87 years in a few months. But as you hear, my brain is still functioning. I always say the gods love me. But I know that this will come to the global mind within the next 5 years. There's no way out because too many people, too many pilots, too many satellites see these objects, see these UFOs. You cannot hide it anymore to the public. Sooner or later, in the next few years, they will announce to the large world, yes, we are not alone. We are observed. There is somebody out there.
I really hope so, because so many people have been made to feel stupid by reporting this, and I fear most people still haven't told their stories because of fear of ridicule. Real quick, I just want to make an announcement for everybody. If you don't follow me on Minds, make sure you open an account. I'm dropping a referral link in there. Also, for everybody out here, make sure you subscribe, hit the like, and share, and leave a comment. Now, Erich, I told you a few hours ago, some filmmaker friends of mine, Third Phase of Moon, huge UFO YouTube channel, Blake and Brent Cousins asked a few questions, so they sent me to ask them to you here. So let me set this up for a second. I want to make sure, and there's still questions in the chat for you. Okay, so the first question for you is, Do you think craft that resembles UFOs may have been reverse engineered by governments, and will it deceive the public, and will we blame a threat on aliens?
I didn't get the question clearly. I
Uh,
have to understand. I have to make
okay.
clear.
Yeah,
My,
no, no.
my mother language is German, and my
Yeah.
second language is French. So sometimes I have problems to understand.
No, no
Say it
problem.
again. The
I'll
question.
say it again. I'll split it into two parts and I'll say it slower. Do you
Okay.
think that ET or craft resembling UFOs may have been reverse engineered by government?
No,
Okay.
no. Well, maybe they tried to make copies of it, but I maybe they learned. Maybe all the story of Roswell are true, and maybe we have learned some of their technology, and they try to do it, but we never reached the standard which extraterrestrials really have. We are far behind their technology.
And the other part was well, no, you actually answered, because if we don't have that, then they can't use that as a threat. Okay, so the other thing is, do you believe that the major media like CNN, Fox News, and BBC's narrative that UFOs are a threat to mankind? Do you really think that
No,
you know how they try to scare us
uh,
every day? Do you think it's
you
real?
know, everything depends on the so-called spirit of time. In Germany, we have a great word, der Zeitgeist, the spirit of time. The spirit of time is what is reasonable at that time. And for the biggest part of scientists, UFOs and extraterrestrials are still unreasonable. So the spirit of time is still against
Hmm.
UFOs and extraterrestrials for a big part of it. But the lower part will become louder and louder, and their voice will become louder. And the proofs by photographs, radar diagrams will become more and more that it is simply a question of the next years that officially we will
Hmm.
be informed. Yes, we are not alone and we are under observation.
Eric, I can't wait for that day. Okay, they have one final question, and for everybody in the chat, I know several of you have written comments for Erich and a couple of written questions that I couldn't get to. I'm going to tell you now, start putting your questions because we don't have much longer with Erich. And I want to thank you, Erich, for being so kind to give us a few minutes longer. Okay, they have two more questions for you. Have you ever heard rumors that these UFOs were recovered by archaeologists?
Not by
Uh,
archaeologists.
do
No.
you ever heard of Bob Lazar?
Of course, yes.
Okay, Bob Lazar, when he was interviewed by Joe Rogan, he was talking about working at S4. One of the 9 craft at S4, he shared this information for the first time in that interview. He said that in the 6 months he worked at S4, he learned that one of the 9 craft was actually found in an archaeological dig. We don't know if that's 20,000 years, 20 million years, but what do you think of the
No,
possibility of something like that?
I really hear this for the first time. In archaeological side, I would know it because I know practically everything what is mysterious in archaeology. I never hear that the UFO or crashed spacecraft was found in archaeological site. No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I guess the next part is not necessarily relevant because it was going to go talk about the point about if we did reverse engineer. The question was going to read uh, how this technology how long has it been in our country? But since you got the questions out of the way, okay, now let me jump into other people's questions for you, Erich, and then we will end. Okay, this is Goofon. He says, ask Erich von Daniken, is Giorgio Tsoukalos taking over your research when you pass the torch?
Giorgio Tsoukalos and I, we are very good friends.
Yeah.
Giorgio has grown up in Switzerland,
Hmm.
and he learned a lot from me, and he's a wonderful personality. He has courage, and I really don't know if he will take over. I have in my office, I have a young man with the name of Ramon
Yep.
Zürcher, and he works since more than 80 years for me,
Yep.
and he knows, of course, everything. He's related to all the scientists and all the correspondents. I guess it's rather Ramon who will overtake when I'm away once. So
It's
Giorgio
funny.
is a
It's
very,
funny.
very helpful figure. Giorgio is a very helpful figure. and a wonderful personality.
It's funny you said that. I'm very great friends with Giorgio. He's Greek background. I'm Greek. The point being is, before we started tonight, I was just speaking to Ramon and saying, "Hey, you're going to be the rock star in a matter of years." I said, next time I have you on, we'll bring Ramon on for a few minutes too.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any other questions, dear friends, before we narrow down? I mean, mind you, this is Erich von Daniken, so I want to give you a chance. I do understand it's 4:30 a.m. Pacific time, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Okay, two more questions here. Oh, no, this is actually that's a comment. Here's the question. This is Derek King. What or how did spark your interest in ufology? You did kind of answer that by mentioning the
What
seminary.
starts my research, or what?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
what he's
said that
asking.
before. It
How
was
did you?
religious doubts. I
Yeah.
had religion. I had doubts in my own religious education. And I was educated in a Swiss Catholic boarding school with Latin and German, and we had to translate parts of the Bible from one language to the other. So I know the Bible very, very well. And as I said in the beginning, I'm a deep believer in God, although I don't know what God is. But what they describe in the Bible, when some figures descend with smoke and fire and loud noise, is not God. That's something different. So, and the technology some thousands of years was not here by the humans, so it must have been extraterrestrial. By the way, also the discussions with humans at that time had with their so-called God. I mean, you take Moses again, these teachers from heaven, they give him instruction about hygienic, about bacteria, about all kind of things which the people at that time could not have known. But the information has come by extraterrestrials.
3OG asks, do you think that time travel is possible or is happening?
I really don't know. I know it's not impossible according to all these new theories of quantum physics, but I am not educated enough to give any comment on this. I simply don't know. Personally, I hope it will be possible. If it's physically possible, that's another question.
My dear friend Johnny Webb, live in London. He used to co-host with me 6 years ago. Johnny asks, ask Erich, is aliens or are aliens part of a new world order?
I would say yes, because we are already influenced, and I'm sure some of our knowledge in astronomy, in technology, has to do with aliens and comes from aliens.
Thank you for saying that. You just and again, that means you have a list. Someone watching right now in London. I just want to respond to a comment from Elena Ianu. That sounds Greek to me, which I am very Greek 100%. So let me say Evcharisto for Tuesday. Do you speak Greek, Erich, by any chance?
What?
Do you speak Greek?
No, but I was educated in school 6 years in Greek, but that was the ancient Greek, not the
Yeah.
modern Greek. So the today's Greek I cannot understand. But I
Well,
still know all the letters
Well,
and the
you
alphabet.
you learned the more difficult one. My
Yeah.
parents had to learn both in Greek, in Greece, and of course Latin. Now, uh, let me ask you about this. Okay, What book are you working on right now?
Well, this is a never-ending story.
Yeah.
I just finished my newest manuscript in Germany, and
Hmm.
this is the book of the answers. You know, practically every day I receive 200 letters from readers, 200 a day. That means 2,000 in 10 days. So I have summarized some of these letters. These wonderful personalities out there, they inform me. They tell me things about ruins and the mysteries in the old books which I didn't know myself. So I published these things. Others speak about UFOs. Others clearly prove, and they prove it they had implantations in their body. They prove they were abducted by extraterrestrials. So the book, the newest book, which is
Hmm.
not out on the German or the American market, is about all these questions and the answers.
I sure miss our, you know, common friend, Dr. Roger Lear. He did such amazing work with those implants. Anyhow, okay. Uh, so total, How many books have you written? I saw the list. I actually have multiple, many, even a first edition of Chariots of the Gods. Are you over 50 books at this point?
And now, I mean, you know, we call it. There are different. We have to differentiate between the books which are stories like science fiction stories or just stories which we invented, and books who are facts. The books who contain facts, I have published 43 of them. But outside of the fact book, I have published a few stories with novels or short stories, which are not facts, which are simply fantasies. So I don't compare them with the books of facts. So the books of facts, 43 titles, and I just write right now on the next one.
And that's amazing that you've written that, because Chariots of the Gods, Part 1, 1969. Part 2, 2019. I remember we did the 50-year anniversary twice that summer. The point being, that's amazing. And so with your other books, that sounds like at least one a year. Okay, I'm going to take one, if not two more questions, and then we will end.
I have to run away.
We're going to end. Don't worry. Okay, Goofon asks, wait, hold on. He's got two questions. Okay, the first one reads, if you were to take a guess, when do you think alien disclosure will take place, if at all?
Within the next 5 years.
5 years. Okay, thank you for that answer. Okay, last question I'm going to take. And Erich, after this question, I'm going to ask you to plug in your info and then hang by for a quick moment after. Okay, if you were to... No, that was it. That was the same question. Well, we're caught up then. Now, we could find your books, everybody. Just Google Erich von Daniken on Amazon, right?
Of course, on Amazon you find all my... By the way, I said in the German language I have 43 titles. They are not all out in the English language, but at least 25 you should find there. And it's a never-ending story. And I absolutely make clear this planet was visited by beings from outer space. This is definitely clear, and I can prove it in the meantime.
Do you have, I know I was speaking to Ramon about this, because of lockdowns, you can't travel to certain places like Los Angeles anytime soon, but do you have any speaking engagements anytime soon?
Not soon now, just because of the lockdown, just because of this COVID-19. It's a catastrophe. I am blocked with so many interviews and especially speeches, which I should have. Well, I hope this will sooner or later be over.
I agree. Okay, let me throw some final things. First of all, everyone in the chat, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who gave super chats, super stickers, 3OG. Thank you for all three of them. Welcome to the show. Thank you as well. And Jackie O. For everybody new here, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share it to somebody else. Leave a comment. And please join me in Minds. Super duper important. It's a crypto site that pays you with free speech. That being said, my dear friend Erich, hang by for a second, but I'm going to give you the last word before we leave up for Thanksgiving. What would you say?
Well, I am happy and very thankful for this chance here of this interview. Don't forget, I'm nearly 87 years old, but the gods love me. And I go on with my message. We were visited by beings from outer space. I can prove